Hello, everyone. Welcome to this special Inside the Americas on the election in Brazil. This Sunday, Brazilians head to the polls for one of the most divisive votes in their country's history. Now, this is a division that can be crystallized by one picture. On the right, the far right, that is, a candidate who is surging in the polls, Jair Bolsonaro, the man who was stabbed on the campaign trail and turned that attack into a way to boost his position, even making live broadcasts from his hospital bed. On the left, Labour candidate Fernando Haddad. He threw his hat into the ring less than a month ago, handpicked by jailed former president Luiz Inacio Lula da Silva after a court ruled he could no longer stand. Now, if Lula had not ended up behind bars, polls say there was a good chance he would have won the presidency once again. But his career was brought to an abrupt end with a corruption conviction. Rampant corruption has left a bad taste in the mouths of many Brazilians, to the point where many of those heading to the polls won't necessarily be voting for a candidate in particular, but against the corrupt ones of the past.
Fernando Haddad, the last hope for Brazil's left-wing Workers' Party, making an unusual campaign stop in a race that's been rocked by corruption scandals, arrests, and the rise of the far right. The former Sao Paulo mayor visiting his now incarcerated mentor Luiz Inacio Lula da Silva, the charismatic ex-president whose conviction has cast a shadow over the election. Since 2014, investigators have uncovered a colossal corruption scheme in what's become known as the Petrobras scandal, with dirty dealings and bribes spreading to the highest levels of government. The ruling Workers' Party, or PT, in power since 2002, bore the brunt of public outrage.
I came to protest against corruption in Brazil. The only way to solve this is to take to the streets and show them what we want.
President Dilma Rousseff was ousted in 2016, and her predecessor Lula sentenced to 12 years behind bars, disqualifying his candidacy for this year's election. A last-minute stand-in, Fernando Haddad has had just a month to campaign, bearing the weight of his party's corrupt image while also benefiting from Lula's tenacious support base.
For me and for students like myself who got into university thanks to the social programs offered during Lula's government, this government period of 8 years was the best in the country's history.
Debacle on the left has meant opportunity for the right, allowing the rise of an unlikely frontrunner. A provocative and hardline conservative, Jair Bolsonaro paints himself as the law and order candidate, but he's also seen by many as a martyr after surviving a near-fatal stabbing in early September.
I have a message for these bandits. They've just elected their new president, and he might even win in one single round.
His release from hospital sparked mass protests by those who oppose his disparaging comments about women, homosexuals, blacks and foreigners. Sunday's election should see 147 million Brazilians head to the polls to pick which of the 8 candidates they'll send to the second round face-off.
Well, to get a bit more analysis on the vote in Brazil this Sunday, let's bring in Hervé Thierry, a visiting professor at the University of Sao Paulo. Hervé, thanks so much for speaking to us on Inside the Americas. What are your thoughts going into the first round of the vote? It does look like a toss-up between this family values conservative, Jair Bolsonaro, the former Sao Paulo mayor, Fernando Haddad. Which way do you think it will go?
I don't know. I do hope there will be a second turn, because some of the more fanatic supporters of Bolsonaro dream of him winning in the first row. I don't think it will be the case, but it's most probably, as every poll says, that those two will be contending for second turn in 3 weeks' time.
Right, but do you think that Jair Bolsonaro really has what it takes to pull all of Brazil to the right with him?
I don't think he has anything that makes him able to do it, but it's the fruit of a rejection of the Workers' Party on the one side and the classical right on the other side. In that case, it will what happened with Brexit and Trump and Italy and partly in France. The rejection brings very unexpected results.
Of course, because Brazil has such a history of left-leaning politics. What you're saying is this might be a rejection of all of that. But I know Bolsonaro also has a large base with evangelical Christians. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, part of the support comes from that because he has been threatening with them, but he also has a good support and growing support of the army and most conservative rural sector, the big landowners. They have been working with him, and we've had rumors this morning that some retired generals are trying to convince the active generals to support him. Till now, he had not very good support on that part because he's a reformed captain. But joining evangelists and military and landowners, it could be a good support.
The situation in Brazil has been a difficult one in recent years. The economy is bad, unemployment is high, violent crime is up. Do most people think that that is all the fault of the Labour Party that's been in power for years now?
No, because I've been coming very frequently to Brazil and then living in Brazil for 45 years. I've never heard anyone saying, this year is perfect, everything is fine. It's a very troubled situation all the time. It's still a growing country with a lot of problems. And the 12 years or 13 years of leftist power have done not much better than the one before.
So what would you say now will be the biggest challenge for Brazilian politics and for whoever wins the post of president, getting them to clean up corruption in politics?
The corruption is be clean. That's a big change that the Brazilians have not any longer resigned, do not accept corruption. The judge have been doing a good work on it. What has to be changed is a political class, because that is very corrupt, is very narrow-minded. So probably everybody says that the technical solution would have a constituent chamber to change the constitution, but the trouble is that the people in power who have the power to change it don't want to change it. So it's really a political challenge. The economic situation is not too bad, but that's a political problem at the moment.
Hervé Thierry, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us, a visiting professor at the University of Sao Paulo. Well, whoever ends up replacing Michel Temer as president will be faced with Brazil's ongoing problem of poverty. There are 23 million Brazilians now living below the poverty line. And a new study says that number has jumped by 33% in the past 4 years alone. A total of 6.3 million people have now joined the ranks of Brazil's poor. That is almost as much as the entire population of Paraguay. Now, many of Brazil's poor live in the country's favelas, and the current political climate has pushed some new candidates from there to try their luck in the legislative election. They're part of the Favela Front of Brazil, a political movement attempting to unify the voting power of favelas and other poor black neighborhoods historically overlooked and underrepresented in Brazilian politics.
In the City of God favela, quiet is recognized on every street corner. At 40 years old, this son of the favela is an activist, a founding member of a favela neighborhood association and a federal congressional candidate for the Socialism and Liberty Party. Today, he inaugurates his campaign headquarters in the heart of the favela.
My first agenda will be to transfer 10% of the budget for our territory. This is going to disturb some people, but we are going to send a clear message that we'll fight to win some power.
His proposals include purifying the public water supply and expanding the hours of public education so that classes run for a full day rather than half a day. They're measures that have been forgotten by a political class which has often never set foot in a favela.
It will give me a platform and speaking time in Congress and decision-making power. It will bring the favela into the national debate when it's always neglected.
Like him, in this election, more than 40 first-time local and national candidates are favelados in districts representing over 18 million citizens and potential voters.
The National Congress is the House of the People. There should be plurality there, and they represent this plurality.
An idea encouraged by Frente Favela Brazil. It's a national movement that hopes to put women and men from the favelas into progressive parties and train them to become good representatives. People like Thaís Ferreira.
I'm the living representation of Brazil. I'm a mother, I'm black, a woman of the poorest class. If we had to have one common person in Congress, it would be me.
This evening, in a working-class district of Rio, she launches her first local campaign for state deputy. She's inspired by her mentor, Marielle Franco, a local black city councillor from a favela who was killed 6 months ago.
The majority of the population is black and poor. Everybody knows that. But who tries to find a solution? Nobody. Why? Because the 1% decides for the 99%.
Frente Favela Brazil hopes these 2018 elections will finally bring change.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's special Inside the Americas on Brazil. We'll see you again next time for all the news from north to south.
You Are Here, your programme spotlighting French heritage.
Versailles, the Louvre, Mont Saint-Michel are well-known stars of French heritage. But French genius and France harbours many other hidden treasures. The arts, gastronomy, architecture, as well as nature's wonders. Come along with France 24, discover France's living heritage. From young apprentices to accomplished craftsmen and farmers, to Michelin star sporting chefs, meet these people whose passion for their professions preserve and drive French heritage.
You Are Here on France 24 and France24.com.